Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Kristi Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because, folks, life's too short to be miserable. Welcome back, Inspiring Possible people. I'm so excited to have you here listening for another episode. If this is your first time or if you've listened to several episodes, I welcome you back and hopefully we can bring a little inspiration to you today in your life. Because, guess what, guys? Life, it throws you some curveballs sometimes. And then sometimes you have expected transitions that are happening in your life, and sometimes you have the unexpected transitions in your life. But today, I have a special guest that's going to help us a little bit with more of the expected transitions that we sometimes go through, especially if you are a parent. Okay. Now, even if you're not a parent, this episode is going to be helpful for you, but I hope you just listen on because, guess what? There are sometimes in life where we get to the stage where we have our kiddos grow up. They come from these little babies and then they get to adults like us and then they transition out of the house. And sometimes that can be different, we'll say. And it can have a lot of different mixed emotions, a lot of different challenges. And so I'm excited to have somebody who knows and talks all about this to help maybe you today guide you if that's where you're at. Or even if you have little ones in the house, guess what? It'll be your story one day of
Yeah.
how to prepare for this transition. So welcome, Karla Olson, to Inspiring Possible podcast today.
Thank you, Christy. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit, Karla, how did this become a passion topic of yours, helping people navigate this phase of life and this transition that many people will go through?
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was when my oldest daughter, I have 3 daughters, and she graduated May 31st of 2019, and I remember we were down on the field taking all the pictures, and my friends who had their youngest leaving, they were just all saying, "I can't believe I'm gonna be an empty nester," and I thought, "Oh, I've got 6 years until I have to worry about that." Well, fast forward 3 years later, and my second daughter was graduating, and I was standing on that field again, and I still could not answer the question of what I wanted to do when I was an empty nester, because mothering is such an active job. You have this baby, it's like a baton race. You get past this baby, you're running, running, running. And then, when my youngest moves out in about 3 weeks, I pass the baton and it really changes your daily rhythm. And so at that time, when my middle one graduated, I woke up at 3 in the morning and went to my kitchen and wrote down the whole outline for the book. And at first, I was really starting to do research for myself to help myself with the transition because I had already had one out of the house and, I was about ready to get rid of, not get rid of, my other one was about to leave, my second one. And it was like a personal project for me, really turned into my midlife mission because when I did the research, I was stunned by some of the statistics. So when I was doing the research, there was 22 million empty nesters in the US alone, and 63% report feeling lost and lonely. And that can even jump up to 75% if there's financial or just stress, financial stress or like
Yeah.
issues. But that's 15 million people that are kind of struggling at this stage. And some people do fine right away, but a lot of them, it takes a while to get used to it. And so I knew that this was something I needed to do. I really wanted to write a book for moms. There was a lot of books out there when I started my research about empty nesting, like how to talk to your adult children or, what to expect when they come home from college. Those books are all great, right? I've read them, I need them. But there was nothing really to talk about the transition, like the mom's soul and like what we go through and our identity, our changing identity. And so I really wanted to help moms thrive in this next chapter.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And I think about, moms specifically, and I think dads do this and they go through this too, right? In
Absolutely.
some ways. But I think specifically for moms, like so much of your identity changes when you actually have kids, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
you lose a lot of who you are and
Yes.
sometimes, not all the times, in the process of, like you said, mothering. It's interesting. We actually had a guest maybe a few episodes back so if you're listening and you're in that more new mom phase,
we did have somebody come on and we talked a little bit about just redefining that season for her of
Abs
entering into motherhood.
Yeah,
But you're talking about something that, I'm even close to in my own life. We were just talking before
yeah.
we pushed the record button. I got a teenager at home. She's going into her junior year in high school.
Oh,
We got at least 2 years, maybe 3. She's kind of a creative soul, so we don't know exactly where we're gonna end up. But that reality of her transitioning out of the home is coming up soon.
yeah,
And for me, my whole adult life, pretty much when I was in college, because I had her in college, has been mothering,
yeah,
And so tell me a little bit about not only your experience, but what you find, because I know you also are working with some women at this stage of life too
yeah.
that are moving through this. So as you was writing the book and as you were going through your own personal experience, what do you find that is one of the biggest struggles for people that maybe is unexpected
Yeah.
when they are going through this transition?
There's 2 things that come to mind. I think it's kinda like packing for vacation. A lot of moms think they're preparing for it by getting their kid ready for college and picking out their bedding and helping them get but it's also like, when I did my research, the happiest empty nesters prepared for their own nest, not just, like, the next step for their child, and so, it's kinda like packing for vacation. We kinda wanna delay it until we have to do it, and so I'm trying to get moms to think about it a little bit sooner, like, right when your kids get their keys and they're driving and are untethering from you a little bit, they're getting a little bit of independence. That's a great time for you to sort of recheck back in with yourself and start thinking, well, who am I without my kids? What's my own unique identity? What do I want to foster and develop in my empty nest years? Because in my book, we talk about empty nesting can be such a beautiful blank canvas to finally do, I call them soul whispers, those things that you've always wanted to do, like those little internal nudges, like I've always wanted to sing, I've wanted to play guitar, or whatever it is for you. But it's such a great time to try to start putting those into your puzzle piece as, your child becomes more independent and some of those puzzle pieces fall off, right? Like they can drive themselves to practice. They can drive themselves to theater. So, my last year, my daughter was in theater and she did it for 6 years. But when she started driving, she was gone 10 hours a day. So my home was really empty while she was gone at school and then at theater until 6 o'clock at night. And so that's one thing. And then also, I think one of the most beautiful things when I work with people like in my book club and going through my book and my journal is when we really kind of work through anyone's limiting beliefs on what they believe is possible in empty nesting. It's almost like every time we're able to raise that lid to such a higher, greater possibility, like a vision that they could never see that for themselves before going through this process. So there's some brain science in there. There's some psychology as to why that happened. But we do a little brain tuning and a little soul cleansing. And then after that, I just have witnessed so many moms have an amazing transition transformation.
Yeah, well, and I love how you said prepare because I'll be honest with you. I am a single mom, solo mom or two, okay? And so it's been me and my daughter for again, my adulthood.
Right?
And, I'm just thinking about my own self. So, guys, y'all are listening. I'm going to be the guinea pig here. But, for me, I've always kind of actually, and this is going to, Kaylin, if you're listening, I do love you, honey. I do love you. But I have kind of almost like been anticipating this
Yeah.
period of time for a while
Yeah.
since I was kind of like, pretty much responsible for her through my adulthood.
Right.
And so it's really interesting. I like how you said about how to prepare because I think there's some things that the closer we've gotten to this stage that I wasn't expecting for me, like, wait, I
Yeah.
am going to be by myself here, right? Like,
Hey.
I am going to have to, like, I'm not going to have to, like, have somebody in the next room that's actually going to maybe be weird for me
Yeah.
more than I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
And so, I like how you say prepare because I think this is such a life transition that I've seen actually a few people that I know, friends that I have already gone through these
Yeah.
phases, right? And had some of that identity reimagining or identity loss, or some people just really don't know what to do with themselves, especially if depending on what part of your pie do you mother. Does that make sense
Yes.
as well? Because I always say there's different leveling of mothering and then
Yeah.
there's different types of mothers as well.
Yes.
And I've seen some people that I just, like, really honestly respect them. I even think about my mom. Like, I'm sure whenever I transitioned out of the house or when my brother finally transitioned, that was probably a very weird space for her because she was such a great caregiver and
Yes.
nurturer, and I have nothing but positive things to say about her.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she probably was like, "Well, who do I caregiver and nurture now?
Right?
And maybe I actually need to nurture myself, but
Yeah.
that's such a foreign concept because you haven't been doing it
Yeah.
throughout that time." So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the thing that catches them off guard is because, think of all the things when you're mothering. You get breakfast ready, or, is their schoolwork done? Are they at practice? Did the dates change? When does this flyer need to be turned in? College applications. We have all these files open. And then all of a sudden, we'll always be their mother, but we really need to find another vessel to put all that energy into because moms are doers, right? Moms are givers. And
Yeah.
I really teach women, it's so foreign to them, but I teach them to fill up their cup first and let others fall in love with the overflow. And that really helps women get aligned really quickly because when women are filled up, we can do so much more. We even give more, but I teach them not to run on empty so much. And so when I talk about preparation, all the research I did, everyone is always like, okay, this chapter just ended. I want to go forward and design my next chapter. And I found out the exact opposite. So in my preparation, and it's the first third part of the book, the first 7 chapters, we actually take a minute to look back at your entire motherhood journey. Like, when's the last time you've looked at your first picture on Mother's Day holding your child? And we actually take a minute and write a letter to her, thanking her, telling her how her life turned out, forgiving her for her mistakes. And it really helps. I know.
This is just me thinking about this makes me wanna start boo-hooing, okay, over here. I'm sure I probably would be crying the whole time I'm writing this letter right here.
People are like, "I have teardrops on my journal." I'm like, "Oh, that's a song. That's a song." But anyway, but that's the point. It's like, I think there's so much power in the pause because it really helps recalibrate you, connect you to all those magical mini moments that created a lifetime for your family with all those memories. And so, but also from a psychological level, then we get so we do a highlight reel for the mom, her favorite moments. Then we have the children give the mom their highlight reels. And that's one of my favorite things because, like, one of the questions is, what is one of your favorite memories of me, of us, that you think I don't remember that you just loved? And so one
Oh,
of
I
my,
love that question.
right? So my middle daughter's answer really surprised me and I had forgotten. I was going through breast cancer and she was about 12. Wait, no, yeah, 12. And she loved my short hair, all my kids did, it was so funny. But I remember saying, even after my treatments, I'm gonna try to be as present as possible, and some days I didn't feel that great. But so one day I was in the kitchen and it started raining, and Riley was looking like she wanted something to do. And I was like, "Riley, let's go dance in the rain." So I grabbed her hand and we went out and just twirled in the driveway and we're catching raindrops. And it just brought tears to my eyes because I'm like, that's a core memory for her that I completely forgot about. And so I love it when the moms that go through my program get those highlight reels from their children because it's priceless. It's just such a neat gift. And it's a great way to have mothers head into the next phase of their life in an elevated state of, I did a good job. My kids are happy. We got through some hard stuff, but with grit and grace, we did it, and it just really, it doesn't close out that chapter, but it really helps us connect back with that younger self because that is the middle part of the book is now what's important to me? What do I want to go do again? And it helps like awaken some of those memories that we had before we were mothers and also honor how much we've learned now. Like we know so much more now than we did back then, right? So it's just that's my
Absolutely.
preparation. I have them look back at the past, we assess the present, and then we go define their future.
Okay, let me ask you something because there was something that came up to me when you're talking about going through the past, right? And we are trying to get the highlight reels, but I do know that for some moms, as they're reflected on the past, this wonderful thing that's not really wonderful, I'm being very sarcastic, that comes up is called mom guilt.
Yep.
How do you help people process
Yeah.
that, not get stuck there? Because
Yes.
I think it's hard to, when you are reflecting back on the past and sometimes your mothering journey, you can think of, the highlights, but I do think that sometimes as
Yeah.
moms, we are notorious for going to all the things we wish we could have done differently or ways we could have showed up differently or ways maybe like when
Yeah.
we were in the early days of parenting, we might have not made our best choices, all those things.
Yeah.
So how do you help moms navigate that? Because mom guilt is a real thing, and it's interesting. I even talked to was talking to my aunt the other day, and she was reflecting back on some of this, and she was almost getting tearful about some of the mom guilt she still carries to this day, right? And her kids are grown, they have
Yep.
children, one of her children has children, so, they're all in a different phase of life, but
Yeah.
how do you help people with that?
It's a great question because, like, I just shared one of my nice memories that Riley sent to me, but I do wanna share the very next text she sent to me because mine were not all sunshine and roses, and that's just motherhood. Like, whoever came up with the term "good mother," I'd like a word with them because I just hate that. Like, I'm, like, over
Well,
it.
and there's so many different types of moms. I've been binge
Yeah,
watching this Netflix show right now called Love Life, and
yeah,
it talks about I don't know if you've seen this yet, but there is an interaction where the mother and the daughter, now that she's an adult, are having kind of a discussion of understanding why her mother was more critical and kind of it was beautiful. They actually broke through some stuff and really was able to
yeah,
heal, I think, in a ways, but it
yeah,
was a very fractured relationship
yeah,
for most of this girl's life, and so the mother was trying to do her own healing to repair some of the stuff that may have been
yeah.
broken, I guess.
And so,
Yeah.
the text from Riley said, "Mom, do you also remember that I was, like, 3 years old and the power was out, so everyone went to the mall, and you lost me for, like, 10 minutes. You were running around with the mall cop trying to find me, your daughter, and I ran into someone in college, and they looked at you like you were the worst mom on the planet." So,
Oh, no.
we all have it, though. I'm like, "Touche, Riley, that's motherhood," but, yeah, I mean, I do
Oh,
really.
yeah, I lost my daughter in Walmart for sure at one
Oh,
point,
yeah.
yeah.
But, that's motherhood, and that's it. I think that makes it beautiful. I really do. I have many moments of things that I could have done better. My family's gone through so many hurdles together. They've watched me. They've just watched me. I'm living for the first time too. And so, it's really amazing when you start to think of those things that you wish you could have been more equipped. I always say that. I try to.
That's a great way to say that, I love that.
Yeah, it's better than the guilt. I think, like, and I'm trying to equip my daughters to not make the same mistakes, but I also don't wanna project onto their journey. So, I have the women take a minute and pause on that chapter and just say, "What would you do different? Think about it, but why?" Because the why is what really tells you what kind of mom you are. Like, I wouldn't have been late to practice to pick you up because I knew that made you scared, and I would be on time because I know that matters to you, that I wanna keep you safe. And so all of a sudden you start seeing what kind of mother you really are when you ask, "Well, why is that important for you if you could go back and do it different?" And so that really
Mm,
fosters great conversations with your children because we all bring experiences, trauma into everything, including motherhood, right? And we all are doing the best we can with what we're equipped with. And I think these conversations sometimes are really needed instead of being ignored, and it can help you grow forward with your adult children. It's really powerful. So I would just say toss the guilt and just kind of dig into why do you feel that guilt? And because most of the times mom said, because I didn't want to make mistakes in front of my kids, or I always wanted to be there, or sometimes people say I wish I could have just made the perfect choice all the time. And I'm like, do you expect your kids to do that? That's impossible. It doesn't exist. But I do think it really helps lessen the shame and the guilt and help the mom stay in that elevated state so she can really, and that's an opportunity in empty nesting to go back and say, "Hey, I brought some of this from my childhood to mothering. I've been working on it." And when your children watch you, like, working on yourself, it's so empowering. It's just like we're models. Mothers are models. And I think it's important to, some of my favorite models fell really hard and built themselves back up. That's a beautiful story, right?
yeah, and that is true. You really do think about some of the people in your life that maybe you wanna model after or inspirations, and I know that none of those are none of those people are perfect, right? And they've had their own struggles, and I do think to your point of what you're saying, and just like again, I was binge watching that Netflix show. One of the things it did show me is how powerful if you can have the insight
Yeah,
to be able to go inward and to own it, and then also understand the why behind it, right? Like the
yeah,
time I got really angry and,
yes,
expressed my emotions, the why behind it is because I was feeling this, this, and this. But now that I think back, I didn't want to necessarily project that onto you, but I wasn't maybe. So it helps in that conversation, like you said, with that adult child at that point, normalize emotions, normalize the ups and the downs.
yep,
I think it's really sometimes can be hard if you try to project this kind of I've got it all together all the time.
right,
Because then when when adulting really happens, as we all know that we go
Yeah,
through.
yeah,
Sometimes I still forget that I'm an adult. I'm like,
I know.
"Christian, you've been adulting for a while now." But, you think growing up that adults had this that have some of it figured out. I don't know if you thought this growing up, but I thought that they had like, you'd reach a certain age and you have
Well,
figured it out.
I did. I mean, I like you, I have an amazing mother, and she was just the perfect model, and she showed me it was important to foster her own dreams. She traveled a lot. She was the president of the art docents. Like, she's beautiful. I mean, she's like the whole package. And so I always thought she had it all together, and she did. But I also think our generation has so much pressure with social media and all the things coming at our kids and how complicated AP, all the kids' schedule, and they have to be this perfect athlete and get into Ivy League schools. And I mean, it's so much. I feel like our priorities are a little bit out of whack, and it causes a lot of pressure on the mom. And then the kid, like, if they don't go to school and they don't have a cell phone, they're bullied. And I think social media really changed a lot. And I think my mom's life, I don't want to say it was simple, but it was she really crafted a beautiful life. And so that's what I'm trying to do is slow down and I talk about that in my book. I did teacher appreciation for so many years at the elementary school. And this one lady, I'll never forget it. She came in and she just looked like the mom guilt was all over her. And she's like, "I'm so sorry." And she's like, "All I could do is bring these cups." Because people were decorating doors and bringing meals. And I'm like I walked over and I just gave her a hug. She didn't even say anything, and she said, "I'm really sorry, my mom's sick, I work, and this is all I could do." And I'm like, "This is fantastic." I'm like, "Everything is great. That's how these things get put together." And I just said, "Give yourself a break. This is wonderful." And I just never forgot her because why do we always feel like we have to be, the one doing everything? And in my book, I say, "And by the way, pass the baton to the younger moms. They have more energy anyway." Because by that time I had a kid
So true.
almost out of the elementary school. I was like, "Here you go, kids, like, good luck."
That's right. Well, and I'm curious, have you been able to have some of these conversations as you're doing your own reflective journey when you're writing this book, you're helping others with your own mom, and
Yeah.
how have those gone for y'all?
I've always been able to talk to my mom for about anything, which has been great. I understand her more as a woman now and not just as a mom. And I think my adult children are starting to see me as an individual and a woman and not just as a mom. And that's all the flaws, who I am as a person, what I'm trying to improve. And I want them to fall in love with that version anyway, because that's what life's all about, right? It's having I think also too, women are finding their voices a little bit earlier, and so I think I'm just like, don't lose your identity. And motherhood is like the greatest thing, isn't it? It's just, you can't even put it into words. But also just keep your toe dipped into your interests. Like keep a little bit of yourself, nurture that along the way. Cause I quite honestly, I had a career. I loved working. I quit after my second kid. I probably should have gone back to work when my youngest was in kindergarten, because I had more time at home. But I just tell my daughters, like, yes, be a great mom, but also just don't lose that little inner fire. Always nurture that along the way a little bit because your kids need to see you blossoming. That gives them permission to go after their dreams. So in my life, I had fallen kind of in the background of my life a little bit, and I was doing everything for everyone else. And so I think when I started writing the book, that's when I really rediscovered and started working on myself and found myself again. It was like one of my passions. So,
Yeah, well, and I love how you said, "Don't wait till it's here." Like, don't wait
yeah,
till
all
it's
right.
here.
Yeah,
You know, you can read all the books to prepare you transition, just like you can prepare for motherhood, and then when it's here, I
yeah,
mean, it's like if you hadn't put the crib together. I mean, not saying that you can't. I mean, you can raise kids
right.
anywhere, right? You could put them
Yeah,
in a drawer and it'll be fine.
yeah,
But the preparation does help you when
yeah,
you're now then sleep deprived and
yeah.
struggling. I'm thinking about those years. But the same way as when people or what I'm hearing you say is when your kids are transitioning out, like prepare so that way you can figure out. And let me ask you about this too, because I'm curious since you are, doing a lot of this processing with these almost empty nesters and then empty
Yeah.
nesters about the whole friend component, because I do
Uh,
know that sometimes friendships get lost in the mothering phase.
yeah.
And how do you help people redefine what that's going to look like for them?
That's a great question. And I've been asked that once before, but making friendships is different in this stage of life because we used to make friends through our kids other parents, right? Like whether it was on the sports field or theater parents or whatever your kid was involved with. And, even like in our neighborhood, a lot of the mom boys hung out, not a lot of the girls' moms hung out. You just kind of you end up being friends with the parents of who your kids are hanging out with all the time. And so in this phase, I encourage a lot of reconnection. So I'm reconnecting with my high school friends because they're in the exact same stage I am. I'm reconnecting with my college friends and people I used to work with because they're at the same stage. And it's interesting because their friend groups are changing a bit too. And so, they're really open to being like, God, I'd love to get together. Or another thing is like one gal that went through my virtual book club, just went on to Nextdoor. She said, I'm going to be an empty nester in a month. My friend group has shifted a little bit. Some people like move away, right? They kind of move away from where they raise their kids and they maybe go back home or whatever it looks like. And she started a group, and now there's 33 women that meet up once a week and go for a walk and go for coffee. And then some of them split off and do yoga and all that. But I think it's a time for new things. It's like nurture the old
Yeah.
one. Also be open to new friendships because and also in my book, we go through this exercise called the 10 C's, which is a play on the Empty Nester Club. But we ask our readers, like, what are you compassionate about? What could you converse about all day? What are you convicted about? And what matters in your community? And so, kind of like your top 5 interests rise to the top. And we pick one thing and have them do some research and go deep on that. And then at the end of the book, when they've done all the making the game plan of how to achieve their future, then we have them reach out to people in the community that have the same interests, and the feedback has been phenomenal, how they've been like, "I didn't know so many people were into, like, violin," or, or wanted like, one of my friends, Sue Ball and her husband, they travel, and so a lot of their friends couldn't afford to travel or still had kids at home, and so they started an empty nester travel business, Sphera Travel, shameless plug. Now they've met hundreds of people that love to travel all the time that are empty nesters and can go on a dime and just go. So it's really just such a great chapter of possibility. And yes, there's joy amidst the pain. I know I'm going to be crying when I let Katie off at school on September 6th. It's also my anniversary, so that's a double whammy day.
Yeah.
Just like life, there's joy and pain, and we've got to find the joy amidst the pain. We've done our
Yeah.
jobs, and, happy kids truly need independence, and they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Just like we figured it out, they're going to figure it out. We don't have to figure out everything for them. So,
Yeah, that's a big one, right? Because there's sometimes, as they age, you're like, "Ooh, I wanna make that decision for
yeah,
them." Or actually, I was just talking to somebody in, one of the workout groups that I go to, and she was talking about her daughter was a finally she's through college, now
yeah,
she's actually getting a job,
yeah,
and they were talking about all of these things that maybe they were still taking care of, that they were trying to transition to her.
yep,
And, that was one of the things that we were even just talking about in the side chat was just like, how do you prepare her to take on some of these responsibilities? And the reality is that they still have to learn how to navigate all these responsibilities when they really enter into that adulthood. And there is different phases. But I'll be honest, just listening to some of the stuff that you have people go through exercise and books, I feel like this could be for almost anybody, even though it is
yeah,
for almost empty nesters that are going through a transition in life where they are trying to rediscover
yeah,
what is possible for them
yeah,
and how can they really lean into those, I like how you said earlier, soul whispers
yeah,
to be able to really pursue something that's meaningful in this next season of their journey, and how to
absolutely,
be able to honor the journey, but also look forward to what's ahead, which I think sometimes people can get stuck in that place where it's like dreading this transition versus actually seeing it as something they can look forward to, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
absolutely. And I think again, you said it really well. This could be for someone that's already an empty nester, is almost an empty nester like us, has younger children, is a new mom and trying to just, keep her identity as that changes. That's a big chapter change, right? And so
Yeah.
it really could be, we talked about that. My publisher and I talked about rebranding it, but I really wanted to start with a niche of moms that deserved a book like this. This book is so overdue. It's so needed. We've sold thousands of copies, not because I'm a great writer or whatever, but it's like, I felt like this was really guided. I felt like my writing was very guided and mothers need this everywhere. And so I just was really pleased with how it turned out and the feedback I'm getting. And now we've turned it into a 10-week course because our book clubs were like 4 weeks, and getting through this material, sometimes the questions are easy to answer. Sometimes looking back at your past can bring up a lot and take some time. So we have a 10-week course that we're launching in October. And I think that is just really going to be the sweet spot to have people have these massive transformations.
Well, this may be a good segue. So, if somebody is wanting to either get this book or they're wanting to kind of find out more about this course that you're going to be offering, or just about these book clubs that you do as well, where can they find out more information about this?
Yeah, so they can go to my website called theemptynesterclub.com. And I wanted to offer just the first person that emails you in your community a copy of my hardcover that's signed. So I want to know their first and last name, and then a copy of my journal. And then also on theemptynesterclub.com, we are having a virtual book club. So we just did introductions last night. But if you're someone that wants to go through this with a community of women that are just like you, go to my website and sign up for the virtual book club. You can grab my book on Amazon and it'll get to you. And our assignment this week is just to read the first 7 chapters and do some of the exercises if it applies. But I highly encourage it because it's an amazing community of women.
Well, guys, y'all heard it. Check it out. If you want to be that first person that gets that book, then you can email me at Kristi@KristiPennison.com and I will make sure and get that to you. Thank you so much for generously offering that. Well, Karla, I do have a question I like to ask our guest, and this is
Yeah.
actually going to be really appropriate based off of the topic we're talking about. But if you could go back to younger mom you, okay, maybe you're first starting out on the journey or you've been on the journey a little while, what's one piece of advice or word of encouragement that you would give younger mom Karla?
Mm, try not to tear up.
It's
So,
okay.
no, it's funny. So right before the podcast, we were putting some memorabilia in my mom's house, and I opened up this bin, and it was all of the baby clothes. It was just so cute. It was just like right before the podcast. I was telling my mom, I'm like, why am I doing this right before the podcast, mom? What I would say is look for the daily glimmers. They are there, even when you're in the thick of it. Like my middle daughter didn't sleep very well, and I was up all night, and it was hard, and I was still working. But I would just say, look for the glimmers and write them down, even if it's just my sister in law did something so brilliant. And I remember thinking about 6 years into motherhood, I'm like, I should have done that. But she just went and got a grocery store calendar and wrote down one little memory every day. Because I know a lot of people, like I scrapbook for a while, but that takes time. But she just now has these little calendars. And then when their kids grew up, she was able to share them with her boys. I mean, how fun to be like, this was your first
That's
dinner.
really cool.
So, and it was simple. It was just, but I would just say really look for those glimmers every day, even when you're having a hard time, because there's so many magical mini moments that create like a beautiful lifetime. Like this is your legacy. This is your masterpiece. And I want moms to just not forget about all the little things they've done along the way. Because as their kids leave the nest, you think you're going to remember everything. And it's hard to remember that after 24 years of
Oh
parent.
my gosh, it is so hard. I can't
Yeah.
even remember.
Yeah.
Thank God for
Yesterday.
pictures. Thank God for pictures. Okay, that's
Thank
all I
God.
got to say.
Yes, I agree. I agree. But that would be my advice. So yeah.
Okay, I love that. Well, Karla, I just want to acknowledge you for not only coming on the show today, but really, you were going through this journey yourself and you took time along your journey to not only do the inward work, right, for yourself and try to prepare yourself for this new phase of life, but
Yeah.
you didn't really stop there. You were like, okay, let me see how I can also support other people. And, some people can feel guided to do something, but they don't always take action on it. But
Yes.
you said, "Okay, no, I really wanna be able to write this and really stay true to the message that was helpful for you to also guide other people through this life transition." And so, I appreciate you coming on today and sharing with us. I mean, I've learned a few things that I need to start doing. I always say it's kinda ironic how guests are very timely to even me and
Yeah.
my life, even though listeners, y'all can, listen in for my own life development, okay? But I always learn a little nugget, and so I really appreciate you coming. And so, guys, definitely check out that book. And we'll make sure we link that all up in the show notes so that you can kind of find out more about Karla. And if you find yourself in this phase of life, maybe it can be a supportive community for you to help prepare for this transition as well. So I appreciate you coming on, Karla.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Yeah, and so if you are listening, y'all know I like to take one thing maybe our guest said and maybe just remind you of it. And Honestly, Karla just reminded of us of this. So as you go into your day today, no matter where you are, I hope you remind yourself to look for the glimmers because they're there and you just have to kind of look for them. And so until next time, we'll see y'all in a week.
That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.